Are you ready for the heavyweight championship of the world? Are you ready?
Hey, welcome to Unanimous Corner, bringing you another episode of Unanimous Decision. And today, who we talking about, Bill?
Hey, we got a good one for you today. He is a member of the group Con Funk Shun that brought you the Monster Smash. You're hearing it today by Silk Sonic, Love's Train. Not only was he a part of that, he was also a part of MC Hammer's camp that produced 3 of the biggest selling albums in rap history. Today we have Felton Pilate.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, welcome to the show, Mr. Felton Pilate. How you feel?
Hey, I'm blessed. Thanks for you guys for having me.
Cool. Hey, so he's ready to step into the ring, Bill. Let's do it.
Hey, I tell you what, you got a good camera and good sound over there. So
all right.
hey, you're doing good over there. So let's start.
Okay.
At what point in your life did you remember, or do you remember falling in love with music?
Oh man. There's been a piano in my house ever since I was 4 years old. So that, man, as long as I can remember, there's always been music around. Mm-hmm. I fell in love with the idea of being a musician no. Let me go back. 5th grade, I tried out I wanted to try for the elementary school band. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to play drums, but they had too many drummers, so they assigned me the job of playing trumpet.
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
I took trumpet lessons, private trumpet lessons, and then I got tired of trumpet. Then I wanted to take piano lessons, and my mom, who was a music major, encouraged me to take piano lessons. I later taught myself how to play guitar, but it wasn't until junior high school, and I went to my first, junior high school dance, and I spent the entire evening standing there watching the band. Okay. I was like feeding off of that energy. I'm like, hey, man, this is what I think I want to do. Mm-hmm. And that moved me that when I was asked to join a band, I jumped at the opportunity to do it.
Are you trained on the piano?
Yes.
Okay, man, that's my favorite instrument there.
Oh yeah.
And my dad played the trumpet, jazz trumpet, and he plays the guitar. So
okay,
brother plays the drums, and I don't do any. It skipped right over me, and
same here.
It went to my nephews.
My dad and my sisters got most of the musical talent, and I just got the ears. I just love music.
I love it.
Mr. Pilate, you said that you were asked to join a band. I'm assuming this is the infamous Con Funk Shun or another band.
No, it was a band before that.
Enlighten me.
Okay. There was a guy who lived around the corner from me who had an older brother who was the thing in Vallejo, California, where I was raised, right? Mm-hmm. And every weekend, this guy's picture was in the paper playing somebody's fashion show or some event, and his younger brother got tired of living in his older brother's shadow, so he decided he wanted to start a band. And he played keyboards. He was good, right? And I'm 16. He was he was 17. So he asked me. He knew that I was learning how to play guitar, and he asked me to join his band. I'm like, yes, a couple of songs in, he wanted to learn the song Alfie, and I was excited about the song Alfie because I loved hearing it. My dad would always play it, and I said, hey man, I want to sing it. I wasn't aware of how the protocols in my first band. He's the leader. He makes those decisions. Yeah. I'm not supposed to just jump in and say, hey, I want to sing it. But he condescendingly said, I'll tell you what, why don't you come around to my house and audition on Saturday? Man, I went over there. He played piano. I sang my heart out. And at the end of that, he said, Felton, if I were you, I would stick to playing the guitar. I don't think you will ever make it sense. I quit immediately.
Wow.
Started my own band.
Okay.
And that was that. So I got the drummer, who was the son of one of my dad's best friends. The group that I just quit from, I stole the bass player, and he came with me. He was white, had a saxophone player who also played keyboards, who was from the Philippines, and so we, being a mixed race band, we called ourselves Interbreed. Changed the name later to Second Movement.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a competing band in town. The competing band's name was Project Soul, and they were headed up by Michael Cooper. When my band broke up, well, we broke up because the drummer was getting bad grades, and his dad pulled him out the band. Michael showed up on my doorstep. Hey, man, I heard your band broke up. Would you consider joining us?
Yeah.
I said, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. And that was the beginning of that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple of very key people here that allowed me to have this conversation with you now, right?
Yeah.
Had the first guy not told me that I couldn't sing,
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd have stuck with him.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows where that path led to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Michael Cooper asked me to join his band, Project Soul, set me off on a whole another path.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
And
totally grateful.
And the cool part is I feel like, even though you said there was like different forks in the road, like who knows what would have happened if you would have stayed with the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you get the common denominator that I'm hearing from your stories, it's the musicianship in the bands. So I do think when you get musicians in the studio, it's like you're helping a perfect storm happen. And I would say when it comes to Con Funk Shun, 11 albums released in 10 years. If and you guys weren't half stepping with the music. So those are solid music, like musicianship throughout the bodies of work. That's a lot of music. So going into the 9th album, I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
9 albums is a lot in like 10 years. Did you have any indication that would be like your last hurrah with the group?
I knew that the 10th one was my last.
Okay.
Because
okay,
when it came time to do the Burning Love album, I actually had already quit, but agreed to stay on long enough to finish the album.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
They wound up erasing my parts and using someone else anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that was an interesting album that once I heard it, because someone at the record company had a brilliant idea of not allowing anyone in Con Funk Shun to write anything on it, not allowing anyone in Con Funk Shun to play anything on it.
On that 10th album?
On the Con Funk Shun album, Burning Love.
Okay.
It was all outside writers.
Wow.
All outside producers who, as far as I could tell, brought the tracks already done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it was Mike, and they brought in a good friend of mine, very talented gentleman named Melvin Carter to be the other voice.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my humble opinion, the album didn't have, other than Michael's voice, it wasn't a very Con Funk Shun sounding record.
Yeah. It makes sense because Con Funk Shun didn't have anything to do with the production or the writing.
The band sound is different, and then the only resemblance is the Michael's voice.
In my opinion, that's the only thing
Yeah.
that made this song.
And then
Yes.
you're off the project as well.
Yes. Yes. They took my voice off, man. Oh, man. All right.
So I have a question.
Mm.
We're gonna hop to this your Monster Smash Love Train, which
Okay.
Desiree brought to our attention that you had some writing to do with that, and
Yeah.
great person she is. So ever so often it's reintroduced to those who already know it, and it's introduced to those who don't. We had Drew Hill back in 96,
Right.
and we got Silk Sonic today. What is it about this song that is so captivating to make people want to continue to just cover it and recreate what Con Funk Shun generated?
Wow. That's a good question. It's a hard question. I'm not sure what makes them want to try, but I tell you something that Bruno Mars shared with me. He shared with me that they went a couple of years before getting up the nerve to do it because they felt like they couldn't do the song justice, which I found, that I found very humbling, a huge compliment.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about the passion and of the original record, right? The story behind it. There's a guy who has found himself on the wrong side of a love triangle.
Okay,
that's the bottom line. And Mike put so much emotion into that, and I think that is probably the primary reason that worked out well. The song really started off being another song that I had written called "Baby, Please Come Home." My typical, love, sweet, oh baby, I miss you kind of thing. It did not have the same passion. And to be honest, when I first heard Michael asked me for a copy of the track, he said, "Man, I'm hearing something slightly different." Okay, here's the track. Let me hear it. And the first time I heard it, I'm like, "No, man, this ain't gonna work." I like my better. I like my
version. Absolutely.
And it took some serious convincing from the band to say, "Felton, man, are you out your mind? This is the it. This is it." Okay, fine. Okay, yeah. I've said before that sometimes if you think of a song as a canvas, the artist's voice is the paintbrush.
Mm-hmm. And
depending on what kind of brush you use, you get a different picture, right? You take one artist with a brush and you paint on the canvas, which is the song, and you'll get, and although if it's of the same tree, you'll get two different interpretations, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that Love Train was a great canvas for Cisco's voice. He did it. Okay. I love the way he put his emotion into it, right?
Okay.
I think Silk Sonic's version, I'll say, was closer to the original. As a matter of fact, my first time hearing it, I didn't hear the intro, and the first thing I heard was the first verse, and I was thinking, "Damn it, this is our recording," and it took actually a couple no, wait, no, it's different,
Mm-hmm.
And I like how they stayed true to the original emotion, but put their spin on it.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think the reason that song has popped is because people want that vintage sound. So they did stay true to the original, and it's something that's almost unfamiliar now, like to where it's that emotion is kind of missing in R&B.
Mhm.
But also it's kind of mind-boggling to hear that you had to be convinced with that record. But nonetheless, I feel like for your sound with Con Funk Shun, artists typically latch onto that. So I want to mention a couple of your credits. I'm going to leave a lot off the table, but just to kind of name a few, I want to list some artists who have sampled Con Funk Shun's music. Right?
Okay.
So you got Drake, early Drake. This is 2006 Drake, AM to PM.
Wow.
You got Fat Joe, Listen Baby. You got DMX, Lil Wayne, Busta Rhymes, Trey Songz. SWV was featured on that Busta Rhymes track. Wiz Khalifa, Drew Hill, obviously, Silk Sonic, and I'm leaving off a lot of names just because I couldn't dig through the archives enough. So I want to know, what's your criteria when you receive a call that someone wants to sample your music? Like,
Okay. I don't get the call. The publisher gets the call, and they just say yes, and then I'll get a phone call later. Hey, someone to sample your music. We'll send the check later.
Okay.
That's pretty much how it goes. There's a thing called a compulsory license that people actually don't have to get permission to record it. They don't have to get permission. They have to get permission to release it and put it out for sale. But there's a thing called they are required to pay for it, but it's not required to necessarily get permission
to make it.
To make it. Yeah, it's a little fine line there.
So is that kind of how people can, let's say rappers, when they do mixtapes and they put it out for free, they're using the beats, the production. We're not selling it, but we're only using the beats to make a mixtape, the old style mixtapes. Is that how they were able to get away with that?
Well, I can't even say get away with it,
Okay.
Let me speaking from a legal point of view, right? If you've taken something of mine that I should be making money off of, and you're giving it away for free, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And most of the mixtape, I think that most of the mixtape things didn't generate enough money for whoever might have sued them. It wasn't worth pursuing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
But it's still legally, they could go after you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how does that work when, I know we're kind of jumping off a little, Barry, but this is interesting to me. I've been to a concert where an artist sang someone else's song.
Oh, okay. As a top 40 band, that happens all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We were a top 40 band from 1970 to 1974. And our whole 3-hour set was singing someone else's song.
So if someone paid to go to the concert and you're singing somebody else's song, how does that lead? Is there any kind of legal aspects to that?
I believe BMI and ASCAP get paid I believe this is how it works. Buildings pay a flat fee per year for song usage. Right.
Okay.
So that, for instance, let's say you're doing a concert and you sing one of my songs. The building has already paid for a flat fee
Okay.
to cover that, and somewhere down the road, months from now, I'll collect $1 or $2.
Yeah.
It's something minuscule like that.
So
that's how it works.
Actually, now that you mentioned this concept, I think this could have been at play, but this is just me speculating. So I'm jumping ahead because I know you've after Con Funk Shun, you hit the ground running and you produce some monster, help produce some monster albums with MC Hammer. And a lot of artists when rap, this is still when rap's technically fresh, right? From the mainstream point of view. So
Right.
a lot of rappers faced lawsuits in the 80s when they sampled music. So how difficult was it? Was that a compulsory license type thing to where if the artist blew, then the I guess the lawsuits will follow, or was it a traditional method of actually trying to like clear samples when you were working with Hammer?
I'm going to use You Can't Touch This as an example, right?
That's what I was thinking about.
That's the
We did not sample the record.
Mm-hmm.
We replayed all the parts.
Okay.
So that's called a not as a virtual sample. But anyway, we did not take the recording of Rick James's record and use that as part of Hammer's record.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just replayed the parts and got them sounding as close to the record as we can. And then Hammer and Rick James just made an agreement to make it work.
Yeah, and I think that even that set precedents to where now probably a lot of artists were doing that back then, but because that record was so big and everybody wanted a piece of it, I think that agreement that Hammer and Rick James kind of agreed on, that exists as a precedent today, to where now even today, if you do that, someone has to get paid for that. But go ahead.
Yeah. Anytime you incorporate someone else's work as part of your work, whether it's a literal sample or interpolate, that's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
There we go.
Interpolated sample. There's some money that's supposed to exchange hands.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's negotiated. Sometimes it's for instance, on You Can't Touch This, that was a 50-50 agreement.
Okay.
Hammer wrote the lyrics, Rick James wrote the music. That's a 50-50.
Nice. So speaking of Mr. Hammer, MC Hammer, Con Funk Shun, Hammer, rap.
Right.
How did you approach creating with MC Hammer hip hop coming from the R&B world, funk R&B world?
Man, that was hard. It was hard. I will admit that at the point where I was introduced to Hammer through a friend called Fred Pittman, who I was doing some ghost producing for. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Pittman would hire me to do keyboard arrangements, and I'd wind up being the only person in the studio making final decision on what the record is supposed to sound like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he told me that he was dealing with Stanley Burrell, who at that point was calling himself the Holy Ghost Boy, I said, dude, tell you what, instead of me doing your keyboard arrangements, why don't you just let me take the helm on this, right?
Yeah.
And I was coming from a position of playing music, right? And I was not into rap. I really was not. But I put on my producer hat. I said, look, I can do this. I've listened to enough of it and I know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And I set aside my personal preferences and just got in there. And it took some adjusting on my part, thinking as a musician, everything has to be in the same key and blah, 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 blah. No, in hip hop, it does not. Heck with the key. If this is the right beat, this is the same. If it's the same tempo, drop it in. Eventually, the compromise that was made with myself was my process was taking what he brought me and turning it into something that I felt comfortable listening to.
Mm-hmm.
That worked.
Yeah.
That's what wound up us selling 50 million copies.
That and I love the marriage of hip hop and funk. I like, even if you look at the Chronic and you look at MC Hammer
Dr.
early
Dre,
stuff,
yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer, but you're at the beginning where it probably didn't make as much sense, but I think it made perfect sense. And
Yeah.
But so cool thing. You got Con Funk Shun, you go over to producing for MC Hammer. And I think you've actually cut your teeth on writing a lot of material to where like writing, producing material. And I think you kind of made that kind of like your playground. So you once said, and I'm quoting you, the music industry has been your only source of income since 1972.
That is right.
How were you able to sidestep some of the horror stories that we hear about artists when it comes to their royalties as it relates to the music industry?
Wait a minute. Who said I sidestepped?
Well, there's a learning curve, and I think you adjusted well.
There you
So
go.
Go ahead and tell us what you learned.
didn't say you sidestepped.
No, I've had my I've had my foot in some stuff here. So someone told me a long time ago it's called the music business for a reason. Someone on a recent interview, someone asked me, "What's your tips on how to be successful?" I said, "Well, the first word is forget successful. Learn how to survive." This is It took some hard knocks. Good example, when Con Funk Shun had to do a TV show when we were living in Memphis, Tennessee, we were invited to come perform on the TV show. So we're thinking that we're doing it live. And at the last minute, like, oh, no. You do it to a tape and you lip sync. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So we go into a recording studio. It's called Audio Dimension. And so we recorded the song that we were going to perform. And the owner, producer, was like, "Yo, you guys sound amazing." And he invited us to come back and record it. We recorded 10, 12 songs because he kept inviting us to come back. Well, we didn't know because he finally said, "Okay, gentlemen, let's talk about paying the bill." Bill? You was thinking about a bill. You were inviting us. Oh no, this is how we make our money. This is a business. So your bill is for $10,000. Well, $10,000 back in 1970. You figure that out. And we're like, "Oh, we don't have $10,000. Oh no, really? Well, if you don't have, I just happen to have this contract, behind my back. Okay, contracts. So if you guys was just signing this contract, to work with me, basically I'll be your producer under contract, and you work for me exclusively. We can let that 10,000 slide. We'll figure it out later down the road." So that was our first dive into the realities of the music business.
Yeah.
You got to treat it like one, and I respect it. I had my issues with Mr. Hammer. So I had my legal battles with him, trying to get paid for the $5.8 million that he owed me.
Wow.
That I was not able to get. I'm still going through therapy about that.
Those are some big records, so I could imagine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But on the other side, separate from the business, been the joy of working with multiple genres of music. I got to work with George Duke. I wound up the title track on one of his albums, right? Got to work with Stanley Clark. Stanley Clark asked me to write my song on his album.
A jazz guy.
Which was thrilling, The funny story about that was like, I had to get over that. Oh my God, I'm such a fan thing, right? Oh my God, Stanley Clarke asked me to write him a song. Yes, Mr. Clarke, I'll be glad to write your song. So I remember being in my studio, and I was halfway writing the bass part. I literally had to stop, and I'm writing a bass part for Stanley Clarke. That's kind of like inviting Wolfgang Puck over for dinner. It worked out well, I can honestly say that I'm playing bass on a Stanley Clarke record. He used my bass part, and we worked it out, and he did a solo on top of it, and we arranged it.
Okay.
So happy that worked out. I've produced a country album. I've produced a gospel album. So I've had with many genres, and it's all been fun. I'm still such a blessing to get paid to do something I would gladly do for free.
That's awesome.
Okay, and we got two more questions here. Decades, 50s, 60s, 70s. You hear about the 70s soul era. Then you got the whole 90s, the whole New Jack Swing, rap is hitting hard. What decade do you feel tips the scale their way, and why?
I was thinking about that this morning, because and I have to kind of change my mind about something I've been saying for several interviews. I've noticed that for the past 5 years that we keep hearing, that in music in general, I keep hearing the same chord progression over and over again, right? A lot, and I felt it was like, and I've commented that it felt like a lack of creativity. But then I started thinking about the 60s, right? And the song, for instance, "Stand By Me." Won't you stand by me?
Benny King?
Yeah.
Okay, Benny King.
That chord progression was used over and over and over and over again back in the 60s, right? And people just took that chord progression and did a whole bunch of very creative stuff with it.
Built on it.
And right. And that has lasted. That has some serious longevity. As a matter of fact, let me tell you, "Stand By Me," Con Funk Shun's Love Train, is part of that small group of songs that another artist recorded, a song that's over 40 years old, and it went to number one. "Stand By Me" is one of those songs, right?
Yeah.
So once we got to the 70s, that chord progression just kind of faded into the woodwork for a while. And then this other new progression came out. Artists really started doing that same very, very creative thing. And I had to go back and really take another listen at myself, right? And that's not reinvented itself, but artists have taken that same creative approach and done a bunch of different things with that chord progression, right? And it's the chord progression from "Let It Be." That chord progression there. If you were talking musician, 1, 5, 6, 4.
I know 251.
Right.
I know a few. I don't know too much, but
okay.
But I know where you're going with that.
And music seems to be following a certain trend. This is cool again over here. This is cool again over here. I personally liked how the chord progression stuff was happening late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
And then on the R&B side, I've been loving everything that's been going on for the last decade.
That's interesting. Like I
And
just said,
I have to apologize because I'm getting old and I actually forgot your original question.
no, you answered it. We asked for the decade that tips the scale, and you just said you said late 70s, early 80s. So you're giving half credit to the 70s, half credit to the 80s. I had a feeling you would pick 70s mainly because that was like the time for the bands. So I guess for the wrong reasons, but you still showed the 70s some love.
Yeah.
So here's the quote. Go ahead.
And I had to think about it, but that was when bands were going in, and it's such a shame that there's no bands. There's no new bands.
No,
on the R&B side, there's no new bands, and I think it's a shame. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, they've been industry's been running away from bands for a minute now. That's even during the 80s. I felt like you started seeing that kind of dwindle a little bit. But the one thing when we talk to our artists, we like to call them our kings. We always say you guys have to represent. So you're obviously still out there, producing. You're experimenting with different genres. What's a way that people could actually catch up with stuff that you're doing? Like social media wise, you got any links you could share with us?
Social media, I am one of the easiest people to find on social media. I am the only Felton Pilate in the United States.
I found you and followed you.
Right. If you just type in my name, you will find me on whatever you mean. I do have to share with you. I found a guy in France, Felton Pilate, and of course, I had to track him down and contact. Hey, dude, we have the same name. His response was, "The Felton Pilate." It turns out that that's not his real name, but he heard my name and he thought it was a cool stage name.
Wow.
So he wasn't pretending to be me. He just adopted that as his stage name, figuring that no one would
gave him a pseudonym.
Wow. That's crazy.
Wow. And that's why I asked you. That's why I asked you that earlier, because I got a Haitian background, and when I hear the pilot, it sounds French. But you gave me the origins of your last name,
right?
What's the once again? It's the Felton Pilate on IG and all platforms.
No, if you just type in Felton Pilate, you'll find me on all the platforms.
Okay, cool. And we got all his links on the screen, guys. Make sure you check him out and go ahead and look at his catalog. I mean, these guys have been sampled over and over, and I just think it's a testament to show it's a much more advantage that you take when you're able to kind of like be a jack of all trades, singing, playing instruments, writing and producing. He did it all, and I think that's why that's been his main source of income, his only source of income since 1972. That is a blessing.
I was trying to explain that to one of my kids. I was said, that has worked out well for me, because if I ever have to walk in and as a job, I'm like, okay, you guys need a keyboard player? No, okay. Need a drum player? No. Need a guitar player? No. Okay.
Yeah. The list is so long. It's you're gonna get through
one man band right there. One man band.
Hey man, and Bill, we got a chance to interview one of the top producers out of the 70s and 80s.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Keep it going.
Who do we interview next? And how do the folks get their 2 cents on that?
Hey, you guys know what to do. Go to our comment section that we renamed My 2 Cents and leave your 2 cents. Who should we interview next? If you have any question for the great Mr. Felton Pilate, please leave your comment or question, and we'll be sure to make sure we get those question or comments back to him. And man, we again, Mr. Pilate.
Perfect. Get me the questions, and I'll come back on and let's ask the questions.
There we
Hey,
go.
there.
There
So
we
we're
go.
gonna leave. We got a revolving door. So we would definitely have you back on.
All right.
Hopefully we can. Hopefully we can have Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak come on with us,
Oh,
and we'll have a good old kumbaya.
And then,
that would be great.
that would.
Oh, yeah.
And then, guys, our information is on the screen. Make sure to check us out. Stay up to date on everything that we got going on.
Absolutely.
Outside of that, everybody say peace.
Peace.
Peace.